So it looks like I might have a new favorite movie of the year. Spoiler alert, you're watching the review for it right now. Let's talk about it. So Wonder Woman is the origin story of, well, Wonder Woman. She's grown up on a hidden island her whole life, training to be a great warrior to lead to peace. And when Steve Trevor crash lands on her island and informs her that World War I is going on, she feels obligated to go out and try and stop the war because she believes she might be the key to world peace. Thus leads to our movie, thus leads to some great action, thus leads to some great war scenes, some great heroism, some great fish out of water humor. All in all, a very, very fun movie, and probably pretty safe to say the most accessible and broad appeal movie in the DC extended universe thus far. But before I go into my full thoughts on it, go ahead and tell me what you thought about it down in the comment section down below. As well, I'm going to put a video out ranking all 4 movies in the DCEU in just a couple days. So if you want to talk about your favorites and everything, join me on that video just a couple days. Let's have a great discussion. With that said, let's talk about the good in this movie. Right off the bat, you've got a cast that really everybody brings their A game. Whether it's Gal Gadot, someone that isn't really an actress, doesn't really have a background in acting, and she leads this movie very well. The director knows how to use her strengths and her physicality, her natural charm, and sense of innocence. There's one of the key things about the character that makes the character really interesting is she has an innocence to the world, and she's naive while being a strong character, a smart character, a bold character, but naive in many ways. That Gal Gadot just really nails that, makes her likable, well, frustrating in some of her ways of thinking. All of that works really nicely, in particular because she's paired with Chris Pine. He's playing in many ways kind of like his version of Captain Kirk, minus the douchebaggery and maybe a sense of romance and heroism there that makes for a very likable, maybe his most likable character yet. And the two of them paired together so well as this warrior princess, well, not Xena, but just that wants to go to war because she believes that she can be the key, that's so naive to the way of the world, and a cynical guy that wants to do the right thing and knows just how bizarre and broken the world is, and they complement each other so well, and he plays off of her so well that it elevates all the scenes between the two of them. And then going back to what I've said, I don't know that I've actually ever said this, but I've thought it many times that I think that Chris Pine is a great, great leading man that I hope we see a lot more of. Since Star Trek, he's had a lot of big roles, but I don't think he's had ones where he's gotten able to shine as well as I think he actually can. In this movie, he really shines in many ways, carries this, because like I said, Gal Gadot isn't necessarily the strongest actress, but she's used so well because she pairs so well with the other actors in the movie. There's also like Chris Pine's a secretary in this. I have no idea who she is. I don't think I've seen her anything before. You've seen her in the trailers if you've seen any trailers for this, and she's just so likable and so funny. I don't know where they got this person, but she's really great in this as well. And you can just go through the cast. Everybody does a great job of bringing what their character needs to bring to the table, and a number of twists and turns even in the way their characters work, function, and why they're doing what they're doing. From there, you move on to the action in this movie is handled for the most part very well. There's a lot of really cool kind of slow-mo shots, but not feeling like the 300 style, not feeling like the overused way of slow-mo, but kind of its own take on it, so that you have a superhero that can move fast and outmove people, and you can actually see what she's doing. And the way they're staged, it's just very gorgeous shots of her sliding on her knees or kicking someone through a wall or jumping and striking someone or someone shooting 3 arrows. They're all beautiful, gorgeous shots that look very cool. Now, some of the action, I don't want to go into negatives too soon, but some of the action could be handled a little bit better, but some of it is very, very gorgeous the way it's shot. Also, with the story to it, what works really nicely is it seems like they learned from kind of the overly convoluted plot lines or lack of a plot line with Suicide Squad of the previous DCU movies, and they went with a much more streamlined story. It's very similar in nature to most of the Marvel origin story type movies, where you introduce the character in kind of their first stage of life. Something happens that sets them on a journey. Throughout the movie, they sprinkle out hints of who our main villain is, and then that kind of really unplays in the third act. Except here, it's like the best version of that. It's better than the way the MCU movies have done that type of story structure. It's familiar, but this movie, it makes sense the way that plays out. It actually builds into the plot that they've established, and there's a bit of a journey intentionally going on in the story as to why kind of the third act introduces characters and discoveries and who's what in the third act with the main villain. And so all the story works really nicely. And then finally, you just got to talk about, there's a lot of emotion in this movie that works. They take risks and they earn the risks they take. They know that war has consequences. There's moments of victory and we did it, and there's moments of tragedy, of the horrors of war. Now, it's only PG-13, but you still get very much the sense of the horrors of war and that victory has consequences. And because the story is so involved in taking a very naive, very brave warrior and helping her understand really what war is and exploration in many ways of the human experience and why we do what we do and why is man so inhumane to man, that naturally that lends itself to a lot of very powerful, powerful moments. Now, as for the negative, it's mostly little small things. The movie feels at times a little bit too long, like they might have been able to trim it down, maybe about 10 minutes, just tightened it up a little bit. The beginning act kind of feels like it drags a little bit as we're getting our story started. And likewise, somewhat related to that, in that the tone shifts a little bit where prior to Chris Pine showing up, prior to Chris Pine's secretary showing up, there's not a lot of humor in kind of the first 20 minutes of it. And as soon as they show up, suddenly this sense of humor is introduced to it. So there's some shifts in tone a little bit, but really these are minor complaints. The first act works really nicely and is a cool little origin and exploration of this island that she's on. I'm not even going to try and attempt to pronounce it, but cool exploration of this world. And like I said, there's not enough humor. Maybe it could have been tightened up a little bit and shifted some of the emphasis of how they did things. It's a little bit of an expository first act, just giving us information that we need, but it's all done well. Just maybe could have been a little bit shorter. But really, that's kind of it. And some of the special effects aren't quite as strong as I would have liked. There's a few shots that I was like, that feels a little bit off. But those are the types of issues that I had with the movie, and I suspect that's what most people will have, is just little quips about the movie, not actual issues with it. It's a very solid film with a nicely structured story that's fun, that's heroic, that explores ideas of good and evil, why we do what we do. It's a very well-made movie. I expect a lot of people are really going to like this movie. I'm going to give it a 9.3 out of 10. I really enjoyed this movie. I can see this, it's probably almost certainly being in my top 10 for the year. Actually, it'll be in my top 5 for the year. Almost certainly. This is a very cool movie. Very glad that it exists. I love these time period type comic book movies. And this one is a lot better than Captain America First Avenger. And I really like Captain America First Avenger. It's like if the first hour of Captain America First Avenger is like really good to me and then it kind of trickles off. This one's just good throughout. Very solid. And if I'm being honest, I hope you go out to go see this movie. Help it make a ton of money. So you send a message to all comic book people, especially to Warner Brothers. This is what we want. This is how you do it right. Please continue to give this creative team, Patty Jenkins, all of them, more opportunities to make more movies like this, because this is a fun little movie that I think that you're really going to like. But what did you think about it? Tell me in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. With that said, if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, I do TV reviews from time to time, some trailer reactions. I got this thing called Masters of Movie Trivia where me and some other YouTubers compete in movie trivia. Also do some ranking videos. In just a couple days, I'm going to put up a ranking video of all of the DC movies. And by DC movies, I mean the 4 in the DCEU. So you can probably guess where Wonder Woman's going to fall on that list. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching.